All right, we are live, so welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a good week here so far, and thanks so much for stopping by. So, like all the other usual live streams for these Wednesday ones, which is the first one of 2026 here, we're going to go for 1 hour. We'll give priority answering. Then, anyone does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. There's only a few people in here, so you guys all know the drill. But so I'll give priority answering. And but thank you all for showing up. I see we have Lanswath, Wheatman, Chad, and Nico here so far, as well as a few others who just haven't commented. But anyway, starting right off here, Nico, thank you so much for the first super chat of the night here. He says, so for my next car in a year, I think I'm going to go German and see what all the hype is about. I am leaning towards the M2 Auto. Yeah, M2s are really fun, and yeah, I mean, I haven't driven the auto one, but the manual was, pretty quick. The auto is certainly going to be the faster way to go for sure, because the manual was quick, but wasn't like super fast in my opinion. And so yeah, automatic will certainly be the quicker one, especially since you like doing your aggressive driving, racing around and stuff. Yeah, I think the auto is definitely the better way to go, and I hope you enjoy it if you decide that's what you want to go with. And thank you so much for the super chat. And Lance Watt says, good evening. He says, hope everyone's having a good week. His spots for a second gen Ford Taurus in great shape and a white Camry TRD. Nice. Yeah, the old Taurus in good shape. That's impressive. Especially, I feel like you're in kind of a snowy area. So to have that stuff coming out in the wintertime, especially, seems rare and kind of crazy if a car is preserved that well, to be exposing it to the elements. But that's quite the spot. Kudos to that one. And Wheatman says good evening, and Chad as well. And Luke says, I saw an old Ford Escort wagon today. I miss when they used to offer vehicles in all sorts of body styles. I know. Yeah. I mean, so many things had wagon variants and hatchback variants. And, I kind of wonder why we ever got away from that. Like, I guess you can kind of blame it on the rise of SUVs, but I think it's not an exact match, but you see the decline of sedans. A lot of it I think was because what was all the stuff that fell away? There was all the wagon versions of sedans, and that was still a very common thing into the in the 90s and even into the early 2000s, really, before that fully dropped out. And that's really when we started to see sedans declining in popularity significantly. And so it's kind of like they did it to themselves, and now car companies are slowly rediscovering, hey, like maybe people don't want to always sit up high and do want to have better practicality without compromise. We're seeing this with Charger, we're seeing this with Audi A5, S5, and a bunch of others that are slowly figuring it out. Kia Stinger was another. There's a bunch that are slowly leading the charge there, and I hope that everyone else joins in. It's kind of amazing to me we don't have a Camry liftback. Any of those big players in the mid-size sedan segment. Like the first one to do a liftback is going to be, I think, making huge gains as far as sales. And it's I think there was rumors that Sonata maybe could possibly get that for the next generation. I mean, Hyundai would be the one to do it probably because they're always kind of ahead of the curve, and doing the things that everyone else is, either too scared or, dragging their feet with doing. So we'll see. But I mean, I could easily envision all of those, going away from being strictly a sedan to a liftback, just to, again, try and increase that appeal, because why wouldn't you want the hatchback practicality? There's literally no downside, especially with it when it's well done, like Charger and A5. It's like, this doesn't look weird. It's not, you're not losing anything. A sedan doesn't give you anything different. So like, to me, like the liftback thing should have never gone away. And I'm happy to see it returning though, for sure. And Lancelot, thanks so much for the very generous super chat. He says, in an effort to help people with their dry January resolutions, GR Corolla. I only have water here tonight. Not doing dry January, but cheers to all those who are having a drink there for GR Corolla. which I actually didn't mention this in my Toyota little rant that I did yesterday, but GR Corolla actually had its best sales year ever in 2025. Toyota didn't break out exactly how many sales it got, but they just mentioned it had its best sales year in 2025. I think that's a direct result of them offering the automatic, certainly bringing a lot of people off the sidelines that like the car, but needed an automatic, or just the people who are now able to get them without markups and all the dealer BS that you had to deal with for the first year or two there. But I'm very happy. Hopefully that sends a good signal. People are buying new GR Corollas. Keep making them, please, Toyota. So anyway, thank you so much, Landswath. And AMC, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He said, another round between myself and my brother. Whose product portfolio is more impressive? GM Group or Toyota Lexus, just dealing with what products make sense at the end of the day? I mean, I think it depends on what your definition of impressive is and what you think the right direction is, and what is the right thing for now, what's the right thing for the future. I think that you could kind of make a case for both. I think though that Toyota has clearly, I think, the better sales. I mean, they're the top selling conglomerate in the world. So I think that Toyota has products for every niche, and they have a lot of gaps filled that GM doesn't offer, like sedans, for example. Sports cars, sporty stuff, outside of Corvette, there's nothing versus all the stuff that Toyota has and Lexus. So I'd say all combined, I think Toyota has the better lineup and portfolio. And I think they also have the better approach currently for the pragmatic, realistic way to actually improve emissions, working with what they have to work with and the buyers they have to work with. Instead of trying to rush people into something that they're just not ready for or simply not able to do based on their living situation or whatever. Having every RAV4 be hybridized, 500,000 new vehicles a year now going to be hybrid as standard. That drastically reduces emissions and reduces, fuel usage and all that. So I think that even though GM has more EVs, and I really love that about GM, and I love that they're unapologetic about it. And unlike everyone else who's, running back to their cave with their tail between their legs, like GM's like, no, we're staking our claim. Like Cadillac is the luxury EV leader right now, and that's not changing anytime soon with everyone else, again, being all scared about it. I really respect the hell out of GM for a lot of that stuff. And I mean, they've had good sales as a result. Cadillac, is doing great. And so same, with GM. Blazer was down last year. That was one of the little takeaways from 25. Blazer was down, but everything else, had a really good year. But yeah, I think overall, I would say Toyota and Lexus are definitely, the strongest of the two. And also just, GM, like our Lyric, has, some little faults, not deal breakers in my opinion, but, has some faults, has some issues. Which one would I pick to drive for the next 10 years? The Toyota, just because of the reliability component. So I think to me, it's got to be the Toyota and Lexus. But I mean, this isn't quite as clean cut as the last question from last week with you and your brother. I mean, with that was a little bit more cut and dry. That one, I think both of you have decent cases you could make for either side, but I'd say Toyota and Lexus in my opinion. And thank you for the super chat. And curious to see what the next dispute is down the road between you and your brother. I like the healthy debate. That's very fun. You have a brother you can like go back and forth with that stuff on. That's really cool. And thank you once again for the super chat. And anyway, let me see here. Miko says the CS is 50 grand more for the M2. Yeah, there's no point in going for the CS. if it's that big of a price difference, in my opinion. There's a lot of aftermarket support for the M2 to make it, just as impressive for far less. And Luke says, unpopular opinion, Ford should make a large-sized coupe bigger than Mustang to compete with Charger and bring back the Thunderbird name. I'd love that. I think that's a fantastic idea. I don't know how unpopular it would be, honestly. I think at least enthusiasts would be mostly behind it, I think. But yeah, I mean, I always said this was part of why Camaro failed, because it didn't get bigger and more bloated and more daily drivable. It went too sporty, and I think that was the downfall. I think Mustang kind of nicely straddles, in between the two worlds. But then, Challenger just went fully, to the soft side. Obviously still had great power and all that, but, wasn't trying to be a great handler really. And, I think that now with the new Charger, absolutely, it's the same correct pivot again to the hatch, to a huge back seat, a big car that's comfy. It's all the right direction, honestly. I think Dodge, yeah, I mean, I know they've got plenty of shortcomings and everyone likes to throw them under the bus, at the first opportunity. But I think Dodge has the right idea with Charger, and I think Mustang would be wise to follow that. I mean, even, we're seeing Fox bodies are, starting to go up in value, pretty nicely and stuff. I don't know. I guess Ford just, again, doesn't have the budget for it, but like they really dropped the ball on S650 again, not making that a lift back and a hatch. They could have beat Dodge to the punch. Hopefully they figure it out eventually, and the next Mustang is that, because I think that's what it's going to need to survive, into the 2030s. But let me see here. I love that idea, though. Thunderbird name would be awesome for that. And Nico says he test drove the manual and the clutch pedal was very sticky at 2023. Yeah, clutches are a little iffy in BMWs. They can be a little tricky to learn and be smooth with. Some people swear by them. I've never had a ton of time, because every BMW press car I've had, which isn't a lot, but a few of them, they've all been automatics, I believe. Yeah, and any of the other quick experiences I've had in manual M products, it's always been very short, and so it's not enough time to learn how to be really smooth with the clutch on those. But yeah, so that makes sense. Let me see. Decepticon, thanks for stopping by. And Chad says, love the Relics video. The Battle Act returns. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, the Battle Act is back. And it did lose. I forgot to mention in the video, because I didn't actually register it until I went back to edit it. Someone did rip off the Batman spoiler that was custom made that was on the back. It wasn't there this go around. But yeah, that car it's so funny. And that's some of the most fun stuff to find at the yards. There's all the crazy stuff, like there was the, Darth Vader Cobalt in this video, which was a new one. And that, I mean, just the creativity that goes into, coming up with this stuff, and the work and the time, and, like they pulled all their door panels so they could put in like, all this Star Wars fabric patterns. And I mean, it's actually pretty impressive, especially to be investing all that time and money into a Cobalt. That's, I mean, love the one you're with, I guess, but it just seems like, that's a lot of effort to put into a car that, you weren't certain was going to last you very long. But yeah, it's cool to see all those, and I'm glad you enjoyed the video. And let me see. Luke says, I feel a Civic hatchback has 90% the functionality of a CRV minus all-wheel drive. Totally agree. I mean, you have a little bit of stacking ability, in the CRV you don't get in the hatch Civic. So there's certainly that. Now, how often do people truly stack stuff? It kind of, I think, is the same question of like, how many of these people that buy off-roady vehicles actually take them on anything more than an uneven gravel trail. It's probably not a lot, but I mean, there are a lot of people that do, at least for vacations and stuff, load their SUV up to the ceiling. And there's some of that, although that's not even really recommended, because if you ever have to slam the brakes or something, everything comes flying forward. So it's not really advisable to load beyond the seat backs anyway, from a safety standpoint. So it kind of negates, obviously you can do it still, and you do it in limited circumstances, I suppose, but like, technically, really, if you're trying to be safe, you shouldn't even need to go higher than that. So it's again, point to the Civic hatch as well there. But yeah, totally agree with you, Luke. And Lancelot says LC500 is enough said for his case for the Toyota and Lexus. Yeah, and that's certainly, I mean, there's all kinds of cool stuff, for sure. I mean, there's even, there's all the awesome Corvettes too, but the LC500 certainly one of the greats here of our century so far. And Nicholas, thanks for stopping by. And Danny says, hello. So mad I missed Beth on Sunday. I drove a lot, put over 25 miles on the Bolt alone. If B. Mitchell was here, he'd like this rare spot. A 1982 Ford LTD Crown Victoria Coupe. Wow, that's a rare one. Impressive to see one of those running around in the wintertime as well. And thanks for stopping by, Danny, and I hope you're doing well. And Austin says, hey, Matt, survived my health issues and on the road to recovery. Decided to buy myself a C5 Corvette to celebrate. Well, that's awesome. Very happy to hear you're doing better. And yeah, kudos for buying the car too, because that's, situations like that certainly can make you appreciate life and the fact that, yeah, tomorrow's never guaranteed. So enjoy it while you can, obviously within reason. You don't want to drive yourself into financial ruin, but within your means, absolutely go for the fun now. Don't delay gratification because, you might not ever get around to doing it again. So I'm glad you're seizing the day, and I hope you enjoy the C5 to the max. Danny also says he got a bit angry tonight, waiting to make a left turn in the Bolt after picking up dinner for me and my brother. Light turns red as I'm waiting in the intersection. When a second-gen facelift Equinox blows that light, which had been red for about 5 seconds, I laid on the horn. They didn't give an F. Yeah, a lot of people that do that kind of stuff are very unapologetic or just don't even register what's going on, depending on the type of driver it is. But yeah, I mean, even I was just doing rolling shots a couple of weeks ago, and same kind of deal where I was sitting at an intersection, the light turned green. I, started to inch out, but I always look both ways in intersections, even if the light's green, because you just never know. And sure enough, some lady comes, blazing through the red light. Like it was, at least 5 seconds after it had turned red, like not even close, and just goes right through. I'm like, okay. And I just, made sure I stayed out of the intersection until they went through. But man, that's how bad stuff happens if people are just assuming, this is why I don't trust turn signals, all that kind of stuff. If you just assume everyone's going to follow the law and do the right thing, it can get you in trouble sometimes. So you always got to be defensive for sure. Let me see here. So Lancelot, is happy too about Austin. And let me see. Dave says, hey, man, if you were buying a car for a child, new driver right now, what would you pick? I mean, there's a lot of caveats there, but really the biggest one is price. What is the, price you have to work with? I think personally, and this is kind of an unpopular opinion, because the common line of thinking is, oh, they're going to bang it up, so just get them some piece of crap and, let them, ruin it, and it doesn't matter because it's, a clunker anyway or whatever. That I don't agree with, because I mean, again, everyone has different feelings about safety and their kids and how much of a price they put on that and them. But personally, I would want my kid to be in the newest thing possible to give them the best safety possible. And I also, especially with all the driver assistance stuff, all of us seasoned drivers, driver assistance stuff can maybe just be a nag or a nuisance, and, we don't need it. We know how to drive, and, it's fine. But especially for newer drivers and those that are learning, those training wheels can be really, I think, so helpful. I mean, there's the other side of that coin is then they don't fully learn how to do all these things themselves if they're relying on systems to help them out. So you'd obviously want to make sure that you're also training them to, learn to look over their shoulder, even with blind spot monitoring, learn to, brake properly, all the various things. But, so many of these systems now being so helpful, like the Toyota, the proactive drive assist, I think it's called, will, automatically slow, basically just do adaptive cruise all the time, kind of, where it'll, start to slow down if you get too close to a car. It'll help, keep you in your lane, all these types of things. I think that stuff really can help a lot of teenagers who are, learning to drive for the first time. They're kind of distracted. They're, still kids, really, just trying to figure this stuff out. And there's unfortunately been a lot of, injuries and lives lost as a result of just honest, innocent mistakes, because they're not experienced, they, are in a situation they're not familiar with, whatever the case is. And if I can, spend the extra money for a car that can save them literally in some of those kinds of situations, absolutely. Like, I would love, to spend that extra money for that. And, it doesn't mean you gotta, be a rich person to do that. You can go out and get yourself a Toyota Corolla, a base Toyota Corolla, lease something like that for a few years or whatever. You can get cheap cars or even lightly used ones. You can get a lightly used Corolla, for example. Not saying that's the best choice, but, just out of an example here, they all come standard with adaptive cruise. I think this entire generation came standard with adaptive cruise, which launched in 2019 or maybe 2020. Maybe it came on standard later. I don't recall exactly, but like, you can get a car that's well under $20,000 with adaptive cruise as standard, with, blind spot monitoring, all those things, and top-notch crash structures, all that kind of stuff. Because for me, it's just safety is paramount. And that's especially when you're talking about kids. So like, that's kind of my recommendation. Now, personally, I will have to see, and it's going to be 11-ish years before I need to worry about this. But depending on how money situation is, but like, any kind of Volvo that has all that stuff, they're some of the safest vehicles out there. So I think that would be my top pick. But obviously, especially if you're talking about a new driver that's an enthusiast and they, want something fun, then obviously there's other options that are also, pretty safe too, that do have all that driver assistance stuff and can still give them some fun. So you don't have to be rolling around in a, super hyper safe bubble of a car, but, so that's kind of, we'll see again, like, for example, where my daughter lands, in the late 2030s there, as far as, what she wants to do. But that's kind of my advice, is spend the money, put them in something brand new and safe. Because at the end of the day, it's just a car. Like the same way you don't give a crap about, them banging up a clunker, a brand new Hyundai Elantra or something can always be replaced. They're a dime a dozen. It's not like you need to feel bad about them wrecking or screwing up a brand new car. That's what, body shops are for. And that's, again, cars are disposable. People are not, you can always replace a car. So, that's kind of my where I land on all that stuff. And great question, Dave. Hopefully that helps you a little bit, or whatever. Hopefully helps with your curiosity of my stance on that. But Chad, thank you so much for being a member for 19 months now. He says, can we bring back 90s style cloth seats? We had a neon in a van with the fun cloth, and it was way, way cooler than what is in most cars today. I agree. I wish we'd see more of that too. That's one of the reasons why I love Volkswagen GTI with the plaid cloth. But yeah, like even in the junkyard, I just filmed this week, there was that Plymouth Breeze with really fun, colorful, like checkered kind of design to it. There was a 99, I think, for that one. Just so, yeah, I think that especially these days, a little bit of whimsy, a little bit of fun is very much needed. And so I think that it'd be nice to see that, even if, I know so many cars don't even have cloth anymore, but even going up and, doing fun patterns on a leather or on an Alcantara or something like that could also just, make things a little bit brighter than the usual, stuff. And Wheatman, also thank you so much for generously gifting 5 memberships there. I really appreciate that, and happy to see some familiar faces, as well as I think a couple of new ones. They're able to get those memberships as well. So thank you so much for that, Wheatman. And let me see. Where were we here? Yeah, Lancelot says at the very least, the seafoam from back then. That was nice too. Yeah, some of those seats were very nice and plush. And Luke says, too many people over purchase on vehicles. Going back to my other statement, Civic Hatch would be a fine family vehicle. It's probably just as roomy, if not roomier, than early 2000s mid-size sedans. Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, and even just in general, I mean, you look at Civic and how much it's grown, not only just on the inside, but on the outside. I mean, you look at how big they are and all cars, compared to, not long ago. I mean, even, like another example, like I just saw, one of the older like 90s Nissan Altimas in one of the yards when I was doing the yard walk. And like that car is like way smaller than a Sentra. It's probably like the size of the Versa, honestly. And that was like the mainstream, bigger, nice step up from Sentra back then. And so, yeah, I think people have really kind of gotten spoiled. And yeah, it's also the American way of over purchasing. I mean, other countries, obviously have enjoyed, some of these larger vehicles and stuff as well. So it's not just us, but like, yeah, people who like must have all-wheel drive when they went through all of the 2000s, all of the 90s with front wheel drive for most of them, and got around just fine. The people who need to have giant amounts of space. Again, everyone's life's different, and for some people that might actually be a legitimate need, but I think, yeah, it's just, it's the same pickup truck complex of, oh, I may need to move something someday. I better buy a pickup truck and get terrible gas mileage for 10 years and have a giant vehicle instead of just renting a U-Haul one weekend. That same, like, oh, I got to over prepare kind of American attitude that we often have. I totally agree, Luke. You got an ally with me, that's for sure. And Dave says he misses velour interiors from the 80s. Yeah, there's some fun ones for sure. I mean, I was a kid whenever like our 88 Ford Tempo that I rode around in as a kid. I mean, that thing had those like the red velour interior. And I still to this day remember though, like when it was hot and like you'd be like rubbing your elbow on it and stuff, like it was, I don't know, it didn't feel very luxurious to me. I don't know, maybe it's tangled up with other memories of that car leaving us stranded and stuff. But I just, I don't know. To me, it's fun now. Like looking back when I see some of these in the junkyard, it was kind of cool. But I don't actually feel like I enjoyed like being in those seats. But it's been a long time. Maybe I should give it another try someday if I ever get a chance to sit in a velour interior that's not in a junkyard. Because most of those junkyard cars are kind of gross. I don't want to actually sit in them. But yeah. And maybe someone will bring it back and try it out and we'll see. I mean, we're very much kind of going into this same mindset of like malaise and 70s kind of stuff of everything has to be luxurious and all that. So maybe velour is up next. We'll see. And Lancelot says, I love the shout out that Gold Pony gave you on his Instagram, Matt. Yeah, that was really nice of him to give me a shout out. I'll admit I haven't like really followed him super closely, so I had no idea he was actually in PA, which is terrible. I just, yeah, I've never ran it. I don't know if he just never gets invited to events or what, but I've never met him. I've never ran into him, and I know, the majority of the people that do car reviews on YouTube, I'd say, and it just, yeah, he's never been to at least the same events that I've been to. I don't know. But he seems nice. And yeah, it was very nice of him to give me the shout out there. And he's been doing it a long time too. So I respect another old timer in the game here. All of us that been doing this, pre 2015, there's not a ton of us still left, but yeah, so I respect the grind and the hustle because I know what it's like. And Fazlin says, hi, Matt. I heard the new Durango Hellcat is not banned in all states anymore. I'm so happy. Yeah, so they, I guess they changed. I'm not sure if they changed something or if it was just as a reason. I didn't follow. I just saw the headline. So I'm not sure if it's a Dodge change or if it's just them getting, carb and, all the carb states and all that. Cause I believe that was kind of part of the problem is it wasn't available in carb states, right? So if it's just that they're gutting carb, then I don't love that that's the reason why it's legal again, because I think carb is very important. But it's also so expensive for the Hellcats new that I don't really know if it makes much of a difference. Anyone who really wants one that doesn't already have one at this point, because there's been plenty of time to get one if you're buying new and you got 100 grand to spend. I feel like those few people who still want to buy one, it wouldn't have been a big deal to go to another state. So I don't know how much it changes things, honestly. But Yeah, I think Dodge is just going to capitalize on the free for all here, and we'll see. See how much if they can actually bring them out, bring them out of the struggles that they're in. And yeah, so we'll see what happens. But there's rumors this weekend. Have you guys heard that the rumor is that the V8 Charger is coming back for 2027, and there was some stupid rendering that was not an actual picture, but just an illustration of what it could look like and all that. But I don't think it's guaranteed, so it's still just speculation. But I think that's probably going to be coming here pretty soon. I'm assuming, just because why not? It's going to be they're pulling out the 2016 playbook, Hellcat, all the things. It'll be fun. It's just, again, I wish that there was some progress there. But anyway, I won't go down that tangent again. But also, Fazlin says, do you have any tips on marketing and promotion? Just random question. I mean, that's a very wide net. It depends on what kind of marketing, what kind of promotions, because there's not a one size fits all strategy, I think, for marketing promotion. I've kind of learned a little bit here with just doing all my own promo and marketing, I guess you could call it, with the channel for the whole time I've been doing it. But yeah, there's different applications, different things that are right for different sectors and all that. And Chaz says, I think this is said before, but I think the Aztec is kind of cool. I rock a clean one with nice rims and tires. It's at the very least interesting looking. Yeah, it's crazy, but yeah, I think Aztec, it doesn't have the eye searing kind of effect that it had whenever it was newer. I remember just being like, holy crap, that's ugly. And now, we've just been conditioned to normalize ugly cars because there's just been so many of them, and we're just, a tsunami of hideousness. A lot of it coming from BMW, but also plenty coming from other places too. And yeah, like in comparison now, Aztec's tame. I mean, still kind of weird looking. It's kind of funny actually. So my daughter, she really loves helping me with photoshopping the thumbnails for the junkyard videos. And I included the Aztec in that, and we're working on cutting out the Aztec from the junkyard, background. And she's like, that looks kind of weird. And I'm like, yeah, it kind of does. A lot of people didn't like it whenever, first came out. But like, she has no context. I've never said anything about an Aztec to her. She just raw, pure, first time, because I don't think she's ever actually seen one before. First time seeing that back end on the Aztec. And she's just like, something's off there. And so even a 4.5-year-old's like, I don't know about this. So maybe the hideousness will stand the test of time. But yeah, I don't know. To me, I think I'm just, like so many things, you get used to terrible stuff for long enough, and the shock value goes away after a while, as sad as that is in many cases. But but yeah, Aztec, I mean, they had some cool ideas. They had the like little tent thing you could put on the back of it, which was actually very forward thinking, and kind of another example of GM having a crystal ball, but not knowing when the crystal ball is looking towards. It's like, okay, the crystal ball tells us that people are going to really like camping in their cars. When is that going to happen? Maybe in like 2006. It's like, no, you got that wrong. You maybe give it another, 15 years, and then you're onto something. But yeah, there's some cool stuff there with Aztec for sure. Which is kind of strange that a camping vehicle didn't have more ground clearance and wasn't more off-road ready. So, I think the execution could have been better still. But yeah, Aztec is not as terrible as it once was, I think, for sure. And Theodore says, how are you doing, Matt? I'm at work, but I'm still not going to miss your show. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you so much, but definitely don't have me hinder your work there if you need to focus. But thanks so much for stopping by, and thanks for watching so many of the videos. Theodore, I've been seeing all the comments. He's been going back and watching some stuff from the full catalog here. He was watching one of one of my rides in a Gyro Superleggera from like 2010, and all kinds of stuff he's uncovering there and enjoying. So thank you so much, Theodore, for watching all those. You're probably the first person in years to watch some of those videos. So I appreciate it. And yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying them. Dave says, isn't Alcantara just shorter velour? I don't think so. I think velour to me had a more velvety texture. Alcantara is more suede-like, I believe. At least that's my understanding of it. I've never gotten a velour kind of vibe from Alcantara. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I can't really think of anything else. I think velour is really its own beast that's completely different, at least from my experience of it. Maybe some of you feel differently, but yeah. And let me see. Luke says, that's why I bought the Maverick Hybrid bed if I need it. Great MPG, decent interior and space. I wanted a Ridgeline, but I hated the sound system and the Honda infotainment. Yeah, that's totally understandable for sure. Yeah, and Mavericks, that's what it's great for. That's why they sell so many, because people like that idea of the bed. But, you know, the people that are more practical and understand, like, hey, I don't need to tow, you know, a boat that's the size of the Titanic. Maybe I can do without, you know, a full-size truck. It's nice that that the Maverick exists, and I don't know why all the other car companies are still dragging their feet on that. And Lancelot says he does YouTube part-time. He has a full-time job. He also works. I think he lives in Western PA. Yeah, I think he lives in York. I think he's actually fairly close to Sophion of Redline Reviews now. Kind of the same, like middle of PA, I think. But it's interesting. So yeah, I didn't know that he only did it part-time. And that seems like that's going to become a growing trend as YouTube keeps gutting earnings for all of us. Yeah, because there's another development I heard recently too. It's not my news to share, but there's you know, I think I'll just say that I think that you will see more people going part-time, you know, slowly but surely, and we will see consolidation as well. I mean, I don't see any consolidation yet, but I think you're going to see channels start to drop out, or channels just, you know, that aren't able to keep up the pace, because it's like no matter how much you post, no matter how good you do, it's just like you keep getting, you know, your legs swept up from underneath you, and it's getting tougher and tougher. And it's, you know, for those of us who aren't gigantic channels, who, you know, aren't rolling in money, you know, it's going to be a make it or break it thing if YouTube doesn't improve things. So, but they don't really care, because they'll be able to generate their own YouTube content without creators in a year or two anyway. So, you know, they can completely screw us, and they probably will eventually, just because, you know, again, they can completely generate everything. And obviously there's a human component that'll be valuable, but I think, you know, it's not, you know, YouTube doesn't care as much anymore as they used to, I think, because they don't need us anymore. But Michelle says, hello, just joining in. Has the GR brand being its own brand now been discussed yet? No. So if you're talking about, you know, the GR, what is the brand new thing called? I'm blanking right now. But the GR GT, right? Is that what it's called? Yeah, like that's being sold at Lexus dealers because it's too high end to sell at a Toyota dealer, because you don't get the proper experience, which I can understand. But it's also not a Lexus and not a Toyota technically. Yeah, they're just going to call it GR and have it be its own thing, which I don't know why they're trying that. I mean, selling it at the Lexus dealer makes complete sense. Like that's, yeah, no brainer there. But trying to like have a sub brand as its own thing, like that never works. Like everyone loves that idea. Everyone's like, "Ooh, we could do this." And even we're seeing this in Europe, you know, like DS branched off, you know, from Peugeot, right? And it was trying to be its own thing, and then that's kind of failing. All these brands, you know, Cupra is trying to, you know, do something off of Seat and be its own brand. And you know, there's even talks for a while there. I think Ford's kind of dialed it back now, but you know, of Mustang being its own brand, and you know, Raptor potentially being its own brand, and all these different things. And it's like, you know, there's nothing wrong with keeping it under that umbrella. Unless you're trying to dodge dealers, you want to sell direct. That's the only justification I can see for, you know, these new offshoot brands that aren't actually full brands, they're sub brands. You know, aside from if you want to dodge dealers and go straight to consumer, fine. But other than that, it just, it to me, it doesn't make sense. It just confuses everybody. It complicates things. Like, just pick a brand and sell it under there, and you know, it just roll with it. Because I think it's also an echo chamber kind of problem where I think brands, it's their brand. They live and breathe the brand. The brand is everything, and it's all about all the brand. But like when you're not, working for a brand and you aren't, I mean, I guess technically this channel is a brand, but like, whenever you're just a regular consumer, like sure, like the brand matters because that brand gives you, reliability, or it gives you luxury, or whatever the case is. But like I don't think consumers are obsessing over what badge is on the car quite as much as the car companies are, and they're so obsessed with branding and branding this and that. And like, it's like, okay, like obviously you need to be consistent. You need to have stuff that makes sense with your branding. And, people do buy stuff based on the badge sometimes. But, I think that, trying to do all these different sub brands into brands is just like, to me, it seems like a lost cause. I'd love to hear a good solid justification for why, but I have not heard one yet. Yeah, maybe I can be proven wrong. I'd love to hear, an actual good reason, but I haven't heard. Yeah, just none of it seems to make sense to me. But Raphael says, I really hope the V8 Hellcat comes back. We want people to have choices, make what people want to buy. Yeah. I don't want to be argumentative. I'll just leave it. I know that's what most of the enthusiasts want. I think there needs to be a limit to choice. I don't think choice should be unlimited. The same way I don't think we should, let people litter. I don't think we should bring back smoking in restaurants. I think there's, I just, for me, I think that there should be limits on certain freedoms if they have been proven to be harmful to others. That's where I draw the line. Obviously, it's a gray area as far as where exactly you draw that line and what is excessive and what is overboard and what, is worth it for the greater good and better health, or whatever the case is, better climate, if, that's something you believe in. But like, to me, it's, if we're talking, I think if we're talking like super low volume stuff, then it's not as big of a deal. The V12 Ferraris, the Lamborghinis, there's not enough of those to really make a gigantic dent. But whenever you're talking about tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands over the lifespan of the Hellcats and, all the gas guzzlers, that's where it starts to add up. Obviously, trucks are even bigger problems. And there's, other things for sure where you can, pick a target and blame that for a lot of the stuff as well. It's not just Hellcats, but, we've been shown that like there is a better way. You can have instant electric response with a plug-in hybrid that also could have the V8. And that's what Motor Trend originally brought up, many years ago, as the idea for a next gen Hellcat that they claimed was from an insider. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. It's probably an idea that maybe they had at one point that got killed off. But like, I'd be excited about that. I'd be all in for an 800 horsepower Charger that still had a V8, but it was, a smaller V8 that gave you that sound, gave you some character. But then you had, a kick-ass electric motor on it as well that, gave you the other 300 horsepower, whatever, instant response. Like that's progress, instead of just, again, the same old. But yeah. But yeah, I'm sure it'll come back. And like I said, there's a free for all here until 2029 at least. So in the meantime, I'm going to be the unpopular minority opinion here, the contrarian who is the opposite of what most enthusiasts, it seems, are into. And it's gonna be one of the new challenges of the channel. This is why I haven't done the V8 Ram review, because I'm not in love with them bringing that back, and I don't want to do a video that's just me being upset about it. So I'm just choosing not to review it. It's the same thing with the Teslas. I don't want the heat. I'm not gonna I'm not going to do it. So there's just going to be more and more cars where it's like, if I'm bitter about this car, I'm not going to review it. Just review the stuff that I'm excited about, the stuff that I want to support, the stuff I'm excited about. And people can go to the other reviewers for the other stuff, because I'm not going to try and fake it. I'm not going to try and be into something I'm not into. And I've had a big change of heart in the past several years from, the days of me, peeing my pants over every, gas guzzler out there. I still love them, again, in limited quantities. I love them in a responsible way, but it's just, yeah, it's something that, just something I'm not as excited about as I guess a lot of others are. But that's okay. We can all like different things. But Sark says, hey, Matt, what do you think are the best summer tires for the WRXs? The stock Potenza S007s are too snappy for me, especially when you get lift-off oversteer with no warning like hockey pucks. Yeah, I can understand that, especially if you're driving them in colder temps. Best summer tires, I mean, I don't even think it's for, I think any good summer tire is good for anything, and it doesn't have to be specific to any one car. If you're talking summer tires, to me, the best value one, I think some of the Continentals are really solid values. If you don't need to go for the most grip possible, Sumitomo does a great summer tire as well for, a nice low price tag. Potenza's, the Bridgestone, I know people that work at Bridgestone, they're very nice, but I just don't think Bridgestone has a single, top tire. They're fine tires, but they're not the best, in any of the tires they make. They're always, comfortably, several places back, in my opinion. So I think best summer tire to me is still Michelin Pilot Sport. Now 5, I guess, is the newest one. Pilot Sports are amazing. They're phenomenal. That would be my go-to best tire recommendation. Continental close second. Beyond those two, I really don't really like Pirellis. I don't think they're too great in most cases either. There's a few limited against certain instances where they're tuned properly for the car and stuff. But basically, to me, it's always just been Michelin Pilot Sport. You throw that on anything, you're going to have a drastic improvement in handling. They last like 30,000 miles in many cases or more. They're just fantastic. That's what the Bullet had. I love them on that. That's still, I think, my top tire recommendation. Dave says, I thought the facelifted Aztec looked all right. It had cool accessories like a tent and interior bike rack. A shame they didn't base it like a truck, like the original concept. I mean, it would be interesting to see, more trucky Aztec. I guess the bean counter has gotten in the way and just kind of, neutered it a little bit. But maybe they could bring it back someday like that. That'd be cool. And Sark says outside temp was 65 degrees as well. He loves the DWS 06s for the winters in North Carolina. Nice. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a solid all season. I mean, even if you do need to worry, about some cold traction every once in a while. I mean, Michelin Pilot all season is a really solid tire too, and gives you that extra flexibility, so you don't have to worry about temps going below 40. That could be another one too. But DWS, I had that on the Bullet there at the end. I drove it through the winter with that, and really great tire as well. Theodore says, this is off topic, but do you like chips or do you like cookies to snack on? I don't have much of a sweet tooth. I'm more of, I enjoy the savory stuff. So chips all day, every day for me. That would be the go-to pick. Digifex said Tom Peters designed the Aztec. He was not fired. Well, I'm glad he kept his job. And I see also Luke says that the Envoy XUV was another too soon vehicle. I agree. That was another. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's weird. I really want to know how GM comes up with these very futuristic things, which also, I mean, maybe if we continue with that line of thought, looking at, the current lineup, I'm trying to think of weird things that they do that others don't do yet, that could suggest what we'll be seeing in 2040. But I don't think there's really anything that weird anymore. I can't think of really anything aside from them just being very confident about EVs still, which I think you don't need a crystal ball to know that, in my opinion, at least. It's the entire industry knows that's still the way we're headed. But I don't know. If any of you have any other ideas, I'd love to hear if you have any other things that are weird GM things in current times that could be future normal things for everybody else in the car world. Anyway, Vishal says, also drove by the Toyota campus in Plano over the weekend. It's a huge place. Yeah, it is. It is a beautiful complex. I don't know if they ever have open houses or anything, but if there's ever, I think you said you have a family member that works at Toyota, right? So I mean, if you can ever get in there, definitely take a tour, walk through. It is beautiful because not only is it just like this giant ring on the outside, it almost looks almost like the Apple headquarters or something. But you also on the inside, there's a lot of, I mean, the entire middle is hollowed out, and so you have, this like there's a little like creek running through it. You have all kinds of vegetation and stuff. It's really really beautiful. It's a yeah. I don't go to too many headquarters or anything. I've actually only been to a couple, but the Toyota one is hands down one of the coolest complexes I've ever been in for sure. And Vishal also says, yesterday I was parked at the store in between a Fusion and a Mazda 6. Then it hit me that those two and my Passat are all discontinued sedans. That's true. That's crazy. And he also says apparently it is now just Gazoo Racing. No more Gazoo or Toyota Gazoo Racing. Interesting. Okay. I hadn't heard that, but not sure why they're needing again that differentiation, but if it helps them feel better, go for it. And Dylan says, Matt, what do you think of the TRX coming back? I guess we kind of covered that with my thoughts there on the Hellcat. So copy, paste, to me, it's going to be a good cash cow for them. It, restores some goodwill with those, who they're trying to save face with. But there's nothing new there. I mean, it's a little more horsepower, and an SRT badge now for some reason. But that's pretty much it, so that's why I didn't do a video on it, because it's back, but it's not really new, and it's been there, done that. I already filmed multiple TRXs, and I mean it'll be a little bit faster, but the strange thing is even with 777 horsepower now, which is what 75 horsepower more than before, the 0 to 60 is actually slower somehow. And they're claiming a 3.5 second 0 to 60. I believe they claimed 3.3 for the last one, or at least it was, if nothing else, I think it was 3.5 for the last one. But I think Car and Driver or someone got 3.3. Maybe they'll get a faster time and Rams being conservative for whatever reason. But yeah, it doesn't seem like it's really that much faster, at least as far as 0 to 60 goes. Maybe a quarter mile is a little bit better. I don't know. But yeah. But yeah, it's cool. I think, if I want a crazy, truck, I love Hummer EV. I think Hummer EV is really cool. If, obviously it's because it's trying to move the ball forward, and it has more power, and it's even more absurd in my opinion. So if that's what you're going for, again, GM had your answer a couple of years ago. And that's, if I were in the market for that, which I don't ever foresee a need for a giant off-roady SUV or truck, but if I were in that market, I would absolutely be driving Hummer EV instead. Which, by the way, you could right at the end of the tax credit, there are some people leasing Hummer EVs for like $500 a month. It was nuts for like $100,000 truck. So some people got some real good deals. There's actually someone in my area here who seems to have capitalized on that, because they don't have the kind of house that you would need to own a $100,000 pickup truck. I mean, I guess everyone's priorities are different. Some people, I mean, I know in the past I've heard of, there's supercar owners that have vinyl siding on their house, but then they, drive a Lamborghini and stuff. So, I mean, again, everyone has different priorities, but like seeing that Hummer in this person's driveway, it's like, all right, they must have got that good lease deal, because otherwise there's no way, that you're probably actually, paying for that cash or financing or anything like that. But anyway, Sark says, I agree. I wish more car manufacturers actually had their branding mean something. When Subaru brought back the Impreza 2.5 RS and they discontinued the manual transmission, it was a huge letdown. Yeah. The RS was kind of a weird thing to bring back. I mean, I can kind of understand it, I suppose, and it checked out as far as, the branding. But not having the manual anymore was sad. But, it's just another one of those ones where just not enough of a take rate. Same thing with Crosstrek, And Raphael says, a small V8 hybrid with a good sound, that sounds great to me. We agree there. Just don't charge more and take away my sound. Right. And so I think that's kind of, part of my whole crux of the issue with this is like there doesn't have to be a compromise really. It'll be different, but like I think everyone can still win. I think you can still scratch all the itches and you can still, have your cake and eat it too. It doesn't have to be an everything or nothing kind of thing. And maybe that's kind of the part of the problem with the way Dodge approached it is it wasn't everything or nothing. It was like you either have one extreme or the other. But like that's why, and I've said this since the RAV4 Prime came out in 2020 or whatever. Like it's the best of all the worlds with plug-in hybrids, and it's slowly starting to catch on, and it's going to become, the more pragmatic future going forward. Again, this is why Toyota's, really leaning heavily. Their next generation plug-in hybrids are going to be bigger batteries, smaller engine, and and slowly, literally wean people off of gas. And instead of trying to do it all at once, you say, okay, we have a Prius Prime now with 40, 50 miles of electric range, whatever, and 200 some horsepower. You have a nice strong engine still. Then next generation you maybe have a smaller engine, but then you got the bigger batteries, still have 200 horsepower, and slowly working people towards that. And I think that's kind of the better way to do it. And same thing Dodge could have done too. Yeah, even if they want to be real lazy, don't even need to come up with a new V8. Just drop the 5.7 in there or 6.4, either one, and then get whatever you need to get horsepower wise with the electric motor. Yes, you lose the supercharger sound. If you really, really want to be, creative with it, I mean, you could still have a smaller supercharged V8 and have the electrification. I think the problem is, just the weight is the thing everyone would come back to. But like, Chargers, that ship sailed with Charger anyway. So that's one of the few instances where it wouldn't matter. And so, yeah, that's what I would have liked to see, but it doesn't seem like that's in the cards. And so we'll go back to 13 miles per gallon instead in the meantime. And a guy says, I just moved to Pittsburgh and have an Elantra and any twisty roads in the area you'd recommend. Oh, yes, I have a whole treasure trove of roads. I mean, really, one of the wonderful things about Pittsburgh is especially, I mean, obviously, like, downtown Pittsburgh is no fun, really. But, as you work your way outwards, just a radius, any direction, honestly, outward of the city, just get lost. Literally go get lost. And the further out you go, kind of the better it gets, honestly. You can go north, you go up to Cranberry, and there's some great roads up there. You go south closer to West Virginia, there's a ton of great roads, mountain roads. And you can even just save yourself a little bit of time and just pull up Google Maps or something and zoom out and find all the squiggly roads. I mean, there's a ton of them. Obviously, some of them have low speed limits, so it's not an instant foolproof plan to just follow the squigglies. But like if you kind of get a little further out, I mean, but every direction you go, I mean, you can also, there's a lot of stuff that's even like really phenomenal stuff that's within an easy day trip, like Hocking Hills, which is closer to Columbus, Ohio. That's like Car and Driver's official like loop that they do, which is, I mean, it's enough that like me as a passenger, I get motion sickness on that. It's such a windy road. But I mean, there's so much stuff nearby. If you want, just because like I'd have to just pull up because I have an actual list of roads. Send me an email or a message on social, or whatever. I got all the stuff in the description there. Send me a message and I'll send over all of my favorites. And yeah, welcome to Pittsburgh also. Congrats on the move. Hopefully you're enjoying it so far. And also, and this just goes for anybody, there's a really pretty cool app that actually Porsche does called Roads by Porsche, that you can like, and it's not only for Porsche owners, but people have logged their favorite drives and routes, and you can go in and say, okay, here's where I'm at. Let me find some fun routes. And there's a bunch of routes that have been contributed by the community, and you can just drive other people's favorite routes. And that's a great way for anyone to, figure out a new area or, find the good roads. They don't really promote the app or have any, like hardly anyone probably even knows about it unless you're a Porsche owner maybe, but I found it a while back, and it's really nice, especially if I'm in a new place and and I have the time to kind of plan a route or figure out a cool road. That app is very helpful. And Let me see here. Also, Raphael, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, everyone listen to Matt. Gas, sound, even small supercharger line, but hybrid. We can all win. No need to pick sides. Thank you. I'm glad we found that common ground there. And yeah, I wish, I mean, maybe there's other reasons why that stuff doesn't happen, whether it's business case reasons or, a variety of other reasons. Cause I mean, some of the performance plug-in hybrids have been, poo-pooed. I mean, you have M5, for example, people were, really hating on that. And there's a couple of others, that are like, not a ton, but, I think that, it is possible. And I see Lansworth also says proof you can have, that V8 with a plug-in is, the M5. Exactly. And I'm curious. I mean, it sounds like as much as, the media hated on M5, I don't see a ton of them around just yet. But I mean, the order books were really strong, especially for the touring, so much so that they actually now they're producing 50-50 touring and sedan. And they thought the touring was going to be a smaller percentage. So at least as far as the wagon version goes, people are, having healthy order books for that car, it seems. So I think there is, a future there. And, as usual, the Europeans are kind of leading the charge with some of that stuff. But I think that, if that does well for them, and hopefully, some of these American, companies can take some notes and follow along too. Because I really do think, I mean, look at all the, there is such small stuff, and maybe some of this stuff doesn't make sense anymore. I don't know how, what the emissions are on all this stuff, but like, Ferrari had tiny little like 2.7 liter V12s. Like, why are we not doing that kind of stuff? I mean, I guess Lamborghini kind of figured it out with the, screaming V8 and the Temerario. So there are some signs that they're like, hey, like we can just do a lot of cylinder counts and still have them be small and still have them improve things from an emission standpoint, but still are awesome engines. And, why not put in, a 4-liter V8 in the Dodge? Everyone else in Europe does that. And then, you have, again, a bunch of power still, a bunch of sound, and you can, have the plug-in hybrid as well. So, I mean, even Lamborghini with the Ruelto V12 plug-in hybrid. I think it's definitely something that's possible, and hopefully, it does become more and more common as things go forward. But thank you so much, Raphael, for the super chat and for the kind words. All right, so we have crossed the hour mark, so we'll do the last few questions here, and then we'll head on out. But Vishal says, I think it's cool to have the Hellcats back. One last hurrah of that stuff, but I'm not a hater of the 6-cylinder and the electric stuff either. Yeah. And, if that's what it is, a final hurrah, as long as people understand that, because it's the final thing I'll say about this, whether we're talking TRX, Hellcat, whatever, I don't know how Dodge and Ram expect this to end for them, because, okay, sure, grab the bag while you can, get that money, get those cash cows rolling for the next couple of years. Sure, whatever. Let's, putting the environment aside and everything else. From a money standpoint, okay, great. You got the money. You cashed in on everyone that wanted, a gas guzzler again. Great. Now 2029 hits, 2030. I mean, maybe they truly don't think we'll ever see EPA regulations again, and maybe they truly think that people will never care about progress or care about fuel economy, or gas will always be cheap. Maybe they truly believe that. But like, if they don't, then this is an incredibly short-sighted gamble, because all the crap that they got, just a year or two ago, whenever all this electric stuff started coming out, that's where they're going to be. They're going to be exactly right back where they started in 2030. It's going to be the same exact thing of, okay, well, maybe we need to like kill this stuff off again. Then you're going to piss everyone off again. And, we already had the whole like final run jailbreak edition Charger Challenger and, all the like last hurrahs. And they did that all. And now they're doing another cash grab, doing that again. And then, so I think that's why I don't have a good pulse on the Dodge community, but like, I can't imagine that people find this to be super sincere, because they went to, getting rid of all this stuff. And obviously that was part of, Carlos Tavares, the old CEO. And, now there's new management. And so, some of it maybe is truly, people think it is heartfelt, but it's just that they're playing the cards that they're dealt. And the cards right now say, do whatever you want. So they're doing whatever they want and whatever is going to make them the most money. But like, whenever that isn't the case anymore, instead of spending the last few years of the 2020s trying to convert people and trying to show them, hey, this can be cool. This electrification doesn't have to suck. Instead of winning them over in 2030, they're going to have a bunch of pissed off people that say, why can't I have a Hellcat anymore? Why can't I have a TRX anymore? And then those people are again going to just say, okay, screw you, Dodge, screw you, because those buyers, if you're not going to try and win them over, then you're just going to lose them, and you're never going to win them over, especially the second time. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you, kind of thing. Or I got that backwards. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So I think you're going to see, that. I just don't see that going well for them. Again, I wish them all the best and everything, but like, it's not going to end well. And how it ends, I don't know, but I don't envision. I mean, I guess I sure hope that they bank the money that they make over the next couple of years, and maybe that helps them to ride out the rough times they're going to have in the 2030s. But again, unless we have a free for all forever, Dodge and Ram are going to be in some real trouble as we get into the 2030s, like real trouble. In my opinion, at least. I don't wish that on them, but I can't see things going well for them. If all your fans are going to hate you again, and there's no going back, unless maybe they hope things flip again in the mid to late 2030s or something. I guess anything's possible, but that's not a viable business option to be every 4 years having your fans hate you and then trying to win them back by copying your old playbook again. So I don't know. Anyway, that's all of my very unsolicited and I'm sure very, very, I don't know, people are probably just tired of hearing me talk about it. But anyway, and Dylan says they still might keep the front end and the new taillight design they added on the RHO. Yeah, I mean, there was the refreshes there. The interior got a little nicer, so there's some new things, but it's still the same truck. Otherwise, it's not like it's a new generation or anything. So that's why it's just the same to me still. And Sark says, thank you for the tire recommendations, Matt. I thought about all seasons year round, like you mentioned with the PS4, all seasons is an option, but I've been so hooked on having summer tires when it's warm out. I mean, yeah, there is no replacement for summer tires. That's for sure. Even the best all season, it's not going to be as good as this summer. So I get it. And Michelle says, I have 2 family members that actually work at Toyota HQ. So definitely have the chance to get inside and check it out sometime. Awesome. Well, I hope you enjoy it when you do. It's very, very cool. Sark says, you mentioned the RAV4 Prime being nice. What do you think of the Camry hybrids? The fuel economy as well as the power is impressive. I love Camry hybrid. Yeah, I spent a week with one. When was that? I guess about a year or so ago, maybe. Obviously did the full review on it already. It's great. Very well done. It's priced well. It's well executed. And that's why there's no surprise that it's sold so well here in 2025. It's really great. I hope they add a plug-in hybrid version of that eventually. I think it makes sense, and it's right there on the parts shelf, so I'm sure they will sooner or later. But in the meantime, Camry hybrid is fantastic, and I love the bravery to take that all hybrid. And that's why I really respect Toyota for doing something that maybe isn't super easy all the time, but puts us in the right direction. Let me see. Luke says Harmon Creek Road in Weirton, West Virginia is an awesome road. Interesting. I don't think I've ever driven that one. I'll have to take some notes here and try that one out someday, maybe myself. And Chad says, thanks for doing these and being you. I have to work early, so I'll hopefully see y'all on the next chat. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Chad. And that's what it says. Yeah, the AMG S63. Yeah, all those S63 plug-in hybrids. You're right. They have that whole line as well. Good point, Lanswath. And I see 06 ACC says you should have the choice to purchase a high-performance gas guzzler. This is America. Yeah, and I know that's what a lot of enthusiasts think. I just think we shouldn't have a free-for-all to do whatever we want. If it's if we had a lawless country, that wouldn't be great. We need to have some kind of rules on things, in my opinion. But anyway, I digress. And thank you all so much for joining in here. I hope you enjoyed the live. I apologize for the rants, especially those of you who it's an unpopular opinion, I'm sure. But thank you all so much. We'll see you on Sunday for the next live. And I'll be actually posting another rant here probably early tomorrow. It sounds like we also might possibly have a new MR2 reveal here at the Tokyo Auto Salon on the 9th. So if it's not just a modded old MR2 and it's actual new car, stay tuned. I'll certainly be talking about that. I don't know anything about it, but there was just that leak or the teaser that was dropped officially about, it seems like there's possibly an MR2. So stay tuned for that. Some cool stuff here with the Tokyo Auto Salon. We'll see if this STI thing Subaru's been teasing is legitimate or, just another little silly special edition, which I think it'll be the latter. But got some interesting developments here, possibly from Tokyo here at the end of this week. So stay tuned for all that stuff. Thank you all so much again for watching and for your support. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.